Welcome to another edition of the Business Plain and Simple podcast presented by the ReGroup Advisors. I'm your host, Tiffany Stone, and it's our goal with this and all of our podcasts to guide prospective and current business owners on their journey to prosperity. We'll show you what to do and what not to do in this ever-changing environment. I'm thrilled today to be joined by Eric Gakuzian. Oh man, Eric, that was awesome. I love that I got that. Of Trackalicious and Craig Fowler of Performalon. And of course, Mike Koshubsky from the ReGroup Advisors. Welcome, gentlemen. So this is going to be a fun little roundtable. I'm really excited. I've seen this world come together, what we're going to talk about. And I had a firsthand, especially when, COVID was going on. We weren't able to get to the tracks. We weren't able to do, track days. So this is exciting for me. And I'm going to start off with Mike. So Mike, how's this relationship been between ReGroup Advisors and Trackalicious?
Well, it's been really interesting. So I had met Eric a couple of years ago, and Craig and I do a lot of deals between ReGroup and his company, and we had started to see the evolution of esports. And most people are familiar with golf, right? So simulators, people started going bars and doing, golfing leagues, etc. And I just heard earlier today, Tiger Woods is looking at doing a esports golf league in Detroit. And one of the lesser known pieces is auto racing. And up until recently, you started hearing professional drivers talk about their sim and, competitively working on their skills, plus, really entering in the competitions. Well, Eric has been doing that for a couple of years now, I think 4 years now. And he's developed a fantastic online platform that has professional broadcasters. If you saw it, you would think you're watching a race on ESPN. And we started to see across the country, especially in the US, some of these centers starting to pop up, professional drivers seeking out, amateur drivers starting to seek out, how do I participate in this? And it has a translation into real world track, which Eric will talk a little bit about. So we've talked in the past, I drive a race car, I'm a licensed race car driver. And I've used both platforms that Eric has, the online virtual side to enhance my skills and continue to practice, and then went to his track days and looked at that. So Craig and I started talking and said, hey, this is, from a private equity standpoint, from a funding standpoint, this is an interesting emerging market. And we wanted to start to take a look at it. Europe, these are very prevalent in Europe, and a lot of auto racing teams are using esports platforms to recruit new drivers. So that's kind of how we got involved with it, Tiffany. And Eric has a wonderful story that looking forward to really having him share with everybody out there.
Awesome. Well, before we get to Eric, I do want to talk to you, Craig. Now, so how do you kind of play all into this? This world is new for some, and it's been around, just like Mike was talking about. I remember going, for happy hour, you go to the bar, you do all this, but now we brought it kind of into home. So how do you play into all of this?
So I've spent many years working with startup companies. I'm very active in the angel and VC investing world. And so I'm always on the lookout for technologies that are emerging where there's a lot of opportunity to get in on the ground floor and really help something grow. And as I learned more from Mike and from Eric about this, I got really excited because, to your point, Tiffany, you've got two different areas that this can grow. You've got the home environment where there's a growth of people who would like to get a great, it's fairly low cost setup to do e-racing at home. And then you have this emerging opportunity for centers where people will go and socialize and be able to do this in a location. And then, of course, this will eventually lead, we believe, to an increase in the number of people actually hitting a real track.
Yeah. No, and what I've seen too throughout the many years, like I was letting you gentlemen know earlier, when COVID was happening, outside of this world, I do pit reporting. A lot of things like that weren't happening. We were all at home. And this was a way that not only could you still have a little bit of racing, but drivers and soon to be drivers could actually get themselves in there, stay up on their skills, really practice and understand, because a lot of the real world tracks were moving over into the sim world where you could see the corkscrew, you could see the straightaways, you could see this, and it's really cool with the setup. So I am really excited. So Eric, this is awesome. This is something that I know is going to really take off, especially because more people are getting into that. And we've seen bigger tournaments happen with, like Call of Duty. We've seen it with other video games as well. And now this is really coming a part of something that's mainstream, especially because racing is worldwide, it's global, and you can be able to see that. So Eric, how did this whole thing start for you?
It's actually really exciting in how it got started. I've always been a car person as a kid, but I grew up in the Middle East and moved to Canada, so I've been around the world. Never really had the mind of how I could get into the auto industry, into auto things. Fortunately, found my way to Michigan, got into the auto industry, but that passion didn't stop there. Cars for me is a 24/7 thing. I work in the auto industry. I live, breathe, eat cars all day, all night. And that need in the winters for us so we do track days, as Mike mentioned. That's the summer activity. That was started off as a hobby and turned into a business. And in the winters, we're like, okay, well, we have snow, we have sleet, we have very bad weather in the winter. How do we keep that skill up? How do we keep that entertainment up for our customer base? And sim racing was the answer. I've been doing it since I was a kid. Video games, only video games, to the point where couldn't find anyone else to compete with locally amongst my friends. So growing that platform to a worldwide, global level was an opportunity that really skyrocketed during COVID, in that, hey, we can't see each other in person, but let's get online and race each other.
And you're absolutely correct, especially in different parts of the country, like you were saying, during the winter time in the Midwest and, in the North, you don't have those opportunities. And then down in the South, in Arizona, New Mexico, where it's super hot during the summer, we switch. And this is something that we can kind of do indoors. So I just want to go a little bit further with this, so you're seeing this with sim racing, we're seeing online sports betting kind of taking together, and now you're able to combine the two. Drivers have some amazing setups for sim racing. And so where do you see it right now and then 5 years from now?
Yeah, I think the key thing is that the entry point is so low, right? Motorsports and racing in general has historically been an elite class thing to do. You really have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars to get into that level of like competitive stuff, right? Competitive motorsports. But this really brings you down to $200. That's where I started. I bought a set of wheel and pedals from my friend, clamped it onto my desk, and drove on it for a year. And I will say that there are people who go, oh no, my equipment's not good enough. One of the fastest people in North America was driving on an office chair and a desk on a $200 setup, just like me. And it's just time and energy that goes towards the practice that's free, practically, because there are many communities like us that provide a lot of opportunity and multitude of sims that people can come join at Trackalicious, for example, our Discord. Everybody is welcome to join and practice as much as they'd like, and we facilitate that. And that really takes that entry point of hundreds of thousands of dollars to literally $200.
I mean, that's a big thing in between, especially somebody who works in motorsports. You were saying, $100,000. I know trucks. Just the truck that itself is $1.2 million for a Mason Motorsport built off-road trophy truck, something that you see in the desert, something that can hit 140 miles per hour. That's just for the truck. That doesn't include the timing, the fuel, the parts if something, happens out there. So I guess when we're looking at this, if anybody's watching this, what type of racing are we looking at? Are we looking at circle track, asphalt, off-road, or is it accumulation of things that you can actually do for Trackalicious?
Yeah, we like to say that we're in a golden age of sim racing where we don't only have one platform to go to, but a multitude. Trackalicious is quite heavily invested into ACC, Assetto Corsa Competizione, which is a GT racing platform. So closed wheeled cars, in GT3, GT4 classes, but we have also recently gotten heavily involved in iRacing. Now, iRacing is arguably the largest platform out there. It has a multitude of classes that you could do, including the GT, open wheel formulas, off-road, on-road, and autocross type stuff. So, or I should say, rallycross, not autocross, rallycross type stuff. So a really broad breadth of classes and oval racing as well. So you're really huge in the States, and it is a global platform, which is the most exciting part, in that you could do practically any type of motorsports anywhere in the world.
You're absolutely correct. I remember when we were hosting some things, and it was really cool to see, because with iRacing, like you mentioned, you had off-road. So we saw short course trucks, which are Pro 2s, Pro 4s, Pro Lights, and they're racing at Laguna Seca, which is an asphalt track that you don't see those things. So it's kind of cool to see all these things come together. I really love that. I do want to go back to Craig. So Craig, you're saying that you were an angel investor and you're seeing these and you love seeing new companies. Really kind of what drew you to wanting to work with Eric? Because this is something that's kind of new and it's just getting better and better. And, Eric, I'm not sure if you guys are going this way, and sorry if I misspeak or anything, but VR is even coming bigger. So not only are you able to see the track, but now you could possibly put on headsets. You could possibly have a not 3D, but 4D experience if you buy a setup where you're moving. Is that something, that's going to happen? So going back to you, Craig, is this something that you saw and you just saw the bigger picture of it?
Absolutely, Tiffany. What I like to look for in new industries, new companies, is a wide path that they can go through to get to revenue and to make money. And when you look at all of the options and all of the opportunities for iRacing in the near future compared to where it's at now, there's just a lot of different ways that Eric and people like Eric can get in and pivot and move around and find markets and find new ways to create revenue. I think it's a wide open space. It seems to be right now just really scratching the surface on what it can be doing. And so I think for aggressive entrepreneurs who are really focused on their customers and really open-minded, there's just a lot of opportunity. And I personally like to be involved in sectors like this where that aren't super constrained, but are wide open, so that you can really find your way and have a lot of different opportunities to get new customers and make money.
You're absolutely correct. And I feel like with this sector coming in, technology within the last 10 years on previous, roundtables, we've talked about this, Mike, you and I have actually talked about this a lot. We've seen the AI sector kind of grow up. We've seen the VR sector and the technology that's kind of changed in the last 10 years. It's becoming a little bit more mainstream. You're being able to have headsets in your own home now. If you want to do VR, you can do that in your own home. If you want to do sim racing, you could be able to do that. You can do sports betting right there on your cell phone. I know tons of people who are getting in this space. So, Mike, I do want to go to you. With these two gentlemen and all the knowledge that you have, especially working with a variety of people, how did this collaboration really come about? And when you were like, these two, I definitely want to help and I want to see what we can do together as a whole.
Yeah, I think kind of to what Craig's point is, him and I spoke a lot about this because it's new. It's a new emerging market, and the esports platforms were for. The gray hair shows I'm on the elder side of the scale here, right? So the virtual side and what existed there, your first perception is it's a video game, right? You just go video games, things kids play. The equipment and I have a sim rig that I use for practicing. The equipment is so sophisticated. The feel of the equipment is probably, other than G-forces, you're 90% there as if you were on a real track. And to the other side of this equation, you're able to get coaching, you're able to practice things, you're able to hit apexes, you're able to feel the car, understand what it's going to do in the virtual world. And then Eric's other side of this is, let me help you navigate and make you comfortable enough to go from a virtual world to get on a track. Because I will tell you, the first time I went on a track, I was scared out of my mind. And I also didn't know what to expect, right? You're showing up to a foreign environment and now I'm going to try to figure out how to get in and out of pits, how to put a helmet on. I learned what a torque wrench was. I mean, it's all that stuff. And so Craig and I were looking at this going, well, geez, not only do you have the online platform generating revenue, but then you can expand the coaching, then you can expand locations, and then you can do into training centers. And then if you get good enough to bring people in, you can develop pipelines to professional teams. A number of professional race car drivers are setting up their own esports feeder systems to help teams like Mercedes and Red Bull, et cetera, recruit drivers through the esports stuff to then get them into real life racing. So, and that brings in a whole nother, venue of revenue. So that's kind of where, I talking to Craig and stuff about that. But I mean, Eric can kind of talk a little bit about that transition to go to a real track, because I think that's ultimately somebody that wants to experience it. You get best of both worlds.
And you're absolutely correct. So Eric, I do want to go to you. Now, we talked about sim racing. You're adding track days, you're giving them coaching, you're giving them training, you're being able to do all these things. So when you do have somebody like Mike who steps out there, they kind of know what's going on. So can you elaborate a little bit more on the coaching and training, and then of course the track days?
I consider ourselves the dealers of speed, self-proclaimed, right? Our responsibility as Trackalicious is to facilitate people getting onto the track, whether it's in the sim world or whether it's in the real world. And we have multitude of relationships with VR headset companies, with sim rig companies and equipment companies that we help facilitate that to happen on the sim racing side. And from the sim racing side to the track days, we also try to facilitate those needs that Mike was talking about. It is incredibly intimidating to go to your first track day, and we have a multitude of sessions. The way we run our track days are all built for the new person and the most experienced, separated into their own groups to feel the comfort that they need to do that, right? And as the dealers of speed, we literally go into cars and coffees and parking lots, say, hey, you have a cool car, you should come to the track, it's not that bad. And that's how we get into things. We have a multitude of coaches in our events that hop into the cars with people and give them guidance. Literally just last night, one of our customers was at our previous track day and had an hour-long session going through his lap, going, oh, I think you could adjust here, I think you could adjust there. And it's not a official service that's provided. It's just my passion for cars and everything automotive doesn't extend to the paying amount, right? I love it and I want to do it 24/7, and that conversation extended. And the last thing that I really want to say that is super exciting, you see a lot of companies in the really upper echelons like Red Bull go, hey, we're going to take our sim racer and take him and put him into a Formula One car. Super cool, very niche and very elite. We've done that at a grassroots level. We've taken the winner of our GT3 Pro Championship and put him into a car on a track, and then this last track day had his first track event at a racetrack in the Trackalicious Miata, and it was such an amazing thing to facilitate, to take someone who had never been in a real car at a real track and help that happen.
I mean, that's really, really cool. And if you know anything about Miatas, it's such a driver's vehicle. It is something that once you kind of get in there, you are one with that Miata, and anybody who knows, and that's a cool thing. And what I think I really enjoy about all of this, Eric, is if you have a vehicle that you want to drive or a type of style driving you want to test out, you are not spending thousands, hundreds, even maybe millions. And you guys, honestly, the best thing and that is kind of helpful for this is if there is an accident, it is in the sim world, and it's a little bit easier than trying to pull everything off and trying to restart there. And this kind of, like you were saying, if you have a taste for it, but you're not sure that you want to do that, or say that you own sports cars, supercars, hypercars, and you are a little afraid to take it to that real world track level, this can kind of help you. And I like that. So I do want to go back to Craig one more time. So Craig, following up with everything and hearing everything that Eric has to say and kind of where it's going, where do you see this and specifically sim racing going in 5 years?
So I see it growing tremendously in 5 years. If I look at where people are spending their money today versus 5 or 10 years ago, there's a lot of money going into recreation, even health and wellness areas. And And Mike, I think you'd mentioned earlier the golf simulation and how much that's grown in areas like the Midwest. This, I think, is a natural next phase for individuals who want to have something that's very active, that's really engaging with other people, and something that is a tie between the real world, so to speak, and the digital world. And I see this having huge potential in the next 5 years. If I had to make bets, I would say you're going to see 10 times as many people, at least 5 times as many people aware and active in some way. And to Eric's point, the entry level to get into this is so low. I know a number of people who are spending $300 or $400 on personal training gym memberships every month. To be able to spend that to get in to have a nice simulation environment, I don't think we're going to have a problem finding customers. I think the key is just getting the knowledge out there and getting people to understand the possibilities. And once that happens, I think growth is going to be really, really quick.
Wonderful. Well, Mike, I do want to follow up one last thing with you. We've seen the sector of technology really, really grow. Just like Craig was saying, it's going to grow even more. It's going to be able to do that. Eric was also saying, not only can you do this, but if you're really good at it, you could possibly move over to the track days to do coaching, to training. And then that is a goal for some people, to be able to really go out there, race, be at that top level and do all of those things. So Mike, one last thing for you. How do you see all of this coming together, and where do you see it going in 5 years or maybe even 10 years from now, especially because that VR world is becoming so big right now?
Yeah, I agree with Craig. I think this is on the early stage of it blowing up. And it is all about people being aware that there's actually tools that you can actually do this. Like I said, most of us who are older grew up playing Gran Turismo and Need for Speed, and those are arcade games, right? And what's hard to wrap your mind around is the difference between an arcade game and a simulator. And iRacing, Assetto Corsa Competizione are both simulators, which means the physics of the car, the handling, the noise, the feedback you get through your wheel is like in a real car. You can't just go blazing around a corner. It's funny, I have friends come over, they'll jump in the rig and they can't make it around the track. And it's because they don't know how to drive, right? So even if you said, I might never take my car on a real world track, this is something that you can experience, but it also helps you become a better daily driver. It allows you to learn how to drive your car down the highway in traffic different. You react differently. You look at things differently. So I see this all of a sudden, people starting to take an interest in it and really using the online platform to get comfortable enough to then go real life experience. I mean, there's companies out there that I think it's Extreme Experience or whatever, it is. They go around the country with all high-end cars, and people go out there and pay a lot of money for 3 laps. And if you ever experience that and you wanted to do some more, you practice on the sim, you go out and you go buy a Miata and you go tear it up on the track and go show all the Corvettes that you can beat them in a Miata and laugh. That's basically what you do. And so I do see this continuing to go out there. Like I said, we've been following the European market and seeing how that explode. Road racing in Europe is popular. NASCAR is popular in the US. This is mostly road racing stuff that's kind of starting to come into play. And it's only going to go up from here.
I do want to add to Mike a little bit in saying that what we do at Trackalicious at the track days, the entry point isn't, I have to go race my car, right? Racing is a skill that's developed over a long period of time where people go wheel to wheel and battle, and there's higher risk involved, let's say. On the track day side, which is what Trackalicious is involved in, the entry point is much, much lower than that. We're not racing people out there. We're facilitating people to come out to drive their cars in a safe manner as possible. Everything on the track is coordinated. Even when passing another car is only allowed when the car ahead is aware and points the other guy by saying, hey, I know you're there. I'm safely letting you by in this allotted zone that is the safest part of the track. So the entry point to actually taking your car and going onto track and learning isn't something where you have to spend 10 years or 5 years or whatever it is on the sim and then go to the racetrack. You could literally go, hey, I just watched Drive to Survive. It was super cool. I enjoyed it, and I want to take my car that has some sports capabilities, no SUVs, let's say, unless you are a super sport modified SUV, which have been on the track, and then come to the track and really try it out in a safe environment. I'm not going to go race somebody on the road or do something that's irresponsible, and you could really get a lot out of it. The thrill, the speed, the skill. It's not just like Mike said, you think you go on there and like, I love cars. I've loved cars since I was a really young age, and I know how to drive it. And you go on there and you really learn the skill discrepancy between someone who's been doing it for decades versus someone who's new, and help them develop that at the track days.
That's awesome. And Eric, I do want to go one more to you before we kind of wrap this up. As somebody who is engulfed in this, like you said, it is a 24/7 love that you have. Yeah. What's your favorite track to kind of go racing on a little bit in the sim world?
Ooh, in the sim world, lots of tracks. The beauty is we have choice of so many, so it's tough to pick one. My favorite track of all time is Road Atlanta. I've been fortunate to go there in real life, but not drive it. But I've had experiences where I've driven on the Nordschleife. I've driven at Laguna. My bachelor party was at Laguna Seca. So
that's awesome.
It's like I said, it's 24/7. It's all I think about. But I would lean towards Road Atlanta being probably my favorite track of all time, both on sim and in real life.
Road Atlanta is cool. I actually just went there a little bit ago. I do a lot of stuff for Michelin, so I've had the pleasure once, like you said, to kind of go there. So Eric, wrapping up everything for you, what does this mean? Trackalicious, where can people find you? How can they get involved? How can they be a part of this? I just kind of want to make sure everybody knows exactly where to go, where they can find all the information, and of course, be a part of this great community.
Absolutely. I'll add a caveat to the last question. I think I'm going to put Mount Panorama tied with Road Atlanta, because the thrill of imminent death every single time in the sim world and not having to deal with it in real life is probably super exciting. Yeah, so trackalicious.com, dealersofspeed.com for registration for our track days, and Trackalicious on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, all over the place, on Twitch and YouTube, where we host our championships and we broadcast them. Like Mike said, is really an opportunity for people to actually get engaged with our commentary. Something that you get in the sim world where you don't get in real life motorsports is that you have the ability to get involved in the commentary and ask questions, and our commentators will help answer that. So those are the main places that you could reach out to Trackalicious.
Awesome. Well, seriously, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today and providing some great information. Eric, Craig, Mike, we really appreciate it. This is awesome. And that will do it for another edition of the Business Plain and Simple podcast presented by the ReGroup Advisors. Thank you so much for listening, and make sure to follow our podcast wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a future episode. You'll be notified as soon as they are released. And if you guys want to catch up on past episodes, you can see those in our podcast feed as well. Lastly, if you are interested in business advising services offered by the ReGroup Advisors, you can contact them at 888-248-7077.